Welcome back to the man with the shiny head channel. Yes, it's Gamer Muscle Videos, and in this video I'm going to tell you which is the best car to start with in Assetto Corsa Competizione, because there's lots of cars in this game, and to put it mildly, they're not necessarily the easiest of cars to drive, especially if you're coming from other driving simulators. Now, we spent about 30 hours, give or take, playing Assetto Corsa Competizione over the last 4 days. I know, I don't have a life. I live in a sim rig. Absolutely fantastic. And with that, we've had a chance to basically go through pretty much all the vehicles in the simulator. And, well, what we found out is that, essentially, the two easiest cars to drive are the Aston Martin and the Audi. So, if you... I'm going to get straight to the point here, guys. You can turn the video off now. Video done. That's it. Finished. Close it down. Hit the like button. Subscribe. Close it down. We're the worst YouTuber ever. Just tells you what you want to know straight away. Rubbish. But I'm going to actually drive... I'm going to drive one of these cars and talk about why it's easy to handle. But, yeah, the Aston Martin and the Audi... they're just like, they're really easy to control. They probably have the most obvious force feedback of the force feedback that's in Assetto Corsa Competizione. As you guys know, I'm not the biggest fan of ACC force feedback. And they don't do anything crazy, especially if you turn the traction control up. They do kind of what you'd expect from a GT3 car, and they're very easy to drive. I mean, the Aston Martin is kind of like a noddy car in how easy it is to drive. The noddy theme tune actually plays as you drive it. But of the two, personally, I found the Audi, not the Lidl. I found the Audi to be the nicest one to drive, and the one that I've found the easiest to be competitive in. So it's basically the car that I've decided to focus more on now when I'm racing online. And I mean, look at our car skin though as well. We've really been tasteful here. We've gone for this Saudi kind of, well, it's not really Saudi because it's more bronze than gold. If this was a Saudi car, the whole thing would have just been reflective gold with golden taps in it, and a tiger in the stuffed in the passenger seat. But yeah, you can see we've done a tasteful skin there, so you know we're legit with this. And also remember, guys, the more garish the car skin, the faster the car will go as well. So that makes up for it being not necessarily the best all-round car for performance-wise. So actually, I should probably say that as well. At this point in time, for actual performance, it would appear, from our experience of racing online, that the Ferrari is probably the best all-rounder car. If you're good at driving ACC and you don't know what track's coming up, and you just want to have you want to have a good chance of winning. I don't know. I mean, you could technically win with all the cars if you're good, but I think the Ferrari is probably the best all-rounder car. That's the impression I'm getting. But for me, if I drive the Ferrari, I find that the back's popping out a bit out of control. It doesn't. It's a little bit raw, but that could be fun at times. Anyway, let's start the race here. I've got Laguna Seca. Just doing a quick 10-minute race whilst we talk about this. So, weirdly as well, another nice thing with this Audi is that the cockpit is a really nice shape and really clear. So if you've got a smaller monitor, so this is one of the other things with GT3 cars. You notice with like DTM and a lot of full-size modern race cars that are based on like full-size vehicles, as opposed to pure race cars. If you've got a small monitor, you'll find that you're sat so far back and so low in the car that it's really hard to actually get a good position from a simulator perspective to actually be able to see things clearly. I mean, obviously, the reason why in real life, why the driver's sat so far back and so low is for the centre of gravity. I mean, it's what they do in real life. In real life, though, and in VR, that's not so much of a problem. But when you're racing in 2D on a small monitor, it actually could be a bit awkward to set the view up so you can see the sort of Motec display, as well as the RPM gauge, and a good view of the track and the actual parts of the car as a reference to where your car is on the track. So the Audi is, I find it really good for its actual visibility, and I like how the dash actually leads you and points you where you're going. It's the small things, guys. A lot of people say these things don't matter, but they do. They don't matter. Whoa, my giddy aunt! Ah, it's all right. It's a Ferrari. That'll be an £8,000 scratch removal service. Why are they slowing? Come on, guys. Let's just go through here. Pro driving. There's a collision. It's all right. We've got 94 safety rating. We're fine. So, yeah, you've got a nice seating position in this car. You can see clearly so that you can drive into the back of Ferraris at the start of the race when they're slow and really make sure that you hit the target. Now, back onto the actual topic of the handling. So, what I would say is that, you know, when you're driving any of the cars in this game, I would always go and select the setup that's the aggressive default. That's what I've been using most of the time. Setting the brakes to 1 if you're doing a sort of race. I think it's any race that's under 30 minutes or something, even under 40 minutes. I think brakes to 1 is the right setting, as long as it's dry. If it's wet, I think you want the brakes on 3. And then I just take the fuel out for the race session. And once you've done that, you could just jump in and drive. And the reason why I think this Audi is one of the easier cars is because it seems to drive the closest to other simulators. So if you've been playing a lot of racing experience, for example, then if you then go to ACC, it will probably, you'll be like, oh, hang on, what's going on here? This is totally different. Because it does drive really different, and the force feedback feels really different. Same if you're used to Assetto Corsa 1. A lot of the cars really do have quite different handling and different feel compared to what you find in other simulators. For good or for bad, but I think it's pretty fair to say that. I mean, a lot of people might really like that, and a lot of people might really hate it, but that's just how it is. But the Audi and the Aston Martin are the closest cars to other simulators, I would say. So we dive Biddly Bomb up the inside there. Nice one. We almost went for a counter-attack on us there. No. Goodbye, matey. Now, what I haven't done yet is you'll notice the traction control on here is set to 6. What I've been doing as well and found works really well in both the Aston... Well, the Aston Martin has 2, like, it has a throttle traction control and engine traction control or something. This car just has the 1. I find that if it's perfect dry conditions and, you know, you're just... it's optimal. You're optimal. The wheels are optimal. Not raining. You've just had a cup of tea. You're feeling on it. No one's damaged your car. You're not doing a really long race where you need to save the tyres. Optimal time. What I found is that you really traction control 2 or 3 is a really good setting, because with traction control on 2 or 3, it allows you to get the back out a little bit on the throttle. It's still super forgiving, and I think this is one of the things with ACC actually. The throttle response of the cars is really forgiving for the rears. Like, that sounds contradictory to what I said before, in that the back of the cars will snap out, especially with cars like the McLaren and even the Ferrari and some of the other vehicles. Well, the Porsche does this, and the Lambo. The back does snap out. Like, the traction loss can be quite immediate, but it's not really from the throttle. It's mostly from the from turning. ACC is particularly, the rear of the cars in ACC seem particularly sensitive from turning rather than throttle and brake inputs. And again, I think that's a big difference from probably more similar to iRacing actually, but a big difference from AC, Assetto Corsa, and Race Room, and even Project Cars 2 and GT Sport. It's the fact that the back comes out from the steering more so than the accelerator. But you'll find with the Audi and the Aston Martin, or I've found personally, maybe it's just driving style, but I find that the amount that the back pops out from the steering is is not too bad. So, you know, you can really throw the Aston Martin and the Audi into the corners without worrying about the back suddenly snapping. unfortunately, because I think the tyre model, in terms of the recovery and the over-limit handling in ACC, I think it's really, really realistic, like absolutely phenomenal. Fortunately, if the back does step out in any of the cars, if you're quick at catching it, you'll like catch the vehicle. And if you were watching our stream yesterday, we were on Bathurst. We had some moments where we're basically going over a corner and back's coming out almost at a right angle, and you still catch it and return it, and you're fine. I mean, sure, you need to change your trousers, and you're now slipping around in your seat, but you know, you can actually, if you're quick with the steering or you've got a DD wheel, you can actually return the cars back to a stable state really quickly, and they do actually settle down quite quickly. Unless you're getting a big sloppy slide. If you're getting a big sloppy slide, you'll notice it takes about 2 or 3 corners for the tyres to get back down to optimal grip levels, probably due to total overheatage. Let's try and throw through here. Poke it through. I definitely found with this Audi that you know, I feel like the car's really, really, really stable. I mean, all the cars in ACC are very stable, I have to say, even with the aggressive setup relative to like iRacing. But this is just, within the context of ACC, it's really, really stable and so safe and happy. Not quite Aston Martin noddy car, but you know, we're talking like my first. It's like one of those you know, those cars that you have as a kid with the feet. I never had one of them, but my friend did, and I was jealous of them. The one with the roof and you pedal it along. Who made them? I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. You know the one with the wiggly wheels at the front. This is like that. Aston Martin noddy. This is that kid's car with the foot walking car. So what you can also do with this, I find, is it's a lot easier with this car to dab the brake to turn it in and get the nose of the car in and control the actual angle of the car through the corners, and do that without losing too much speed. I find with the other vehicles, in many ways, they seem a little bit, for my taste, they seem a little bit too on and off in terms of that point. You know, when you go into a corner, when you're on it, ideally you feel it the force feedback, but I don't in this game. But if you're not using force feedback, if you're using the visuals, when you're absolutely on it, you go into the corner, you've hit the braking, you know you've hit the brake point, you know you're on the limit for the braking. You've got that slight little bit of slip angle, and you can see it visually. You see the bonnet slightly slipped as you're going through the corner, and you hook up that point with, when you're coming off the brake, you're trail braking, you're coming off it, and you hook that up with the throttle to maintain that absolute. That's a bit bold. You hook it up to maintain that absolute perfect slip angle throughout the corner, and then on the corner exit, and you should sort of, it links up when you do it perfectly. It links up with the braking and getting on the accelerator, and it just feels right. It just feels right. I find that really hard with a lot of the cars in ACC. That they seem very sort of abrupt in terms of total grippage and no grippage, especially at the limit. But that's not the case with the Aston Martin or this Audi. Right, here we go. I think this is the last lap here. You'll also notice a good thing to do is, if you've got the traction control, if you're struggling with the rear coming out, you turn the traction control up. You can use the sound of the traction control. You hear it there as it also flickers on the dash and on your wheel if you're really lucky and using like light up, like Motec display or like Fanatec wheel rims and stuff with LED lights on them. You'll see the TC light flashing, so that gives you a clue as to how much you're pushing the rear of the car. And you know, if you're pushing it too much, then you know your traction control will be going crazy. But you can, if you're struggling, as I say, you can turn the traction control up, and that will make sure you're not, at least not losing control of the car when you do overgun it on the throttle. But I really like 2 or 3 on the traction control. We've got one final lap here. One final lap, I think. There we go. Yeah, no fireworks. One final lap. Yeah, I really like having the traction control lower, and then I prefer using the, rather than having the traction control blip at me too much, more using that sensor, the visual slip, to know if I'm overdriving. But really, I think it's a lot harder to overdrive this Audi detrimentally compared to the other vehicles. I've definitely found whilst I was driving the McLaren and the Ferrari, they're just very, very pokey. Oh, we'll go around the outside of him. No. You can with a Nissan. Nah, we've got to get past him. Whoa, we've intimidated him over the sausage. He's had a full English breakfast. I could do with one of them. It's early morning at the moment. Come on, up the inside. Force him off the road. It's a nice battle with the AI. Sometimes you do actually get really good little side-by-side action with the AI in this. I've got them on 95 at the moment, which I find is a good setting. If you're starting dead last and you've got 30 cars, it's a good setting that you'll move your way through the grid over the period of a 10-15 minute race. It's nice practice for practicing overtaking and driving fast without the AI being just pulling away from you. But there we go. That's that done. But yeah, I mean, Audi all the way. I mean, shame there isn't a Lidl's car. That would obviously be the best car. Shame there's no Radical SR3s in this, because that would be even better than the Lidl's car. But if you're struggling with Assetto Corsa Competizione, especially as I was, well, Jesus, calm down, mate. He's taking revenge on us. Especially as I was, if you're coming from other simulators, you know, we play on this channel, we play Project Cars 2, Assetto Corsa 1. We don't live stream R-Factor 2 that much, but you know, iRacing, we play them all, and it's hard enough. Race Room, it's hard enough going from sim to sim, but I definitely think this is a sim that's even harder to jump to if you've got used to sort of what's gone before. But I hope that video has helped you guys and made it a bit easier for you if you're starting out on it. I do highly recommend Assetto Corsa Competizione as a title to buy. I think there's a lot in there now that makes it really good value for money, and I also highly recommend buying the DLC, the last DLC that came out, because the tracks are just absolutely phenomenal quality in this. And for 12 quid, you know, it kind of makes iRacing look a little bit bad. Watch out, iRacing. That's another video. That's another video. Is iRacing under pressure? We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, click that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more sim racing content. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more stuff like this or what you want to see. But until the next one, happy tea drinking and goodbye.